Fans, we are back once again on the Cheapy Productions podcast empire. My name is Jack Kilby, No Gimmicks Guy on the social medias. And I have today a man who had an illustrious career in multiple territories. You may remember him from his work in the WWF, but he worked all over the place. NWA, Florida, Pacific Northwest. And if you're Canadian, you probably recall his run in Stampede Wrestling. I'm talking about none other than the man, the illustrious Scott McGhee. Scott, thanks for joining us today.
It's my pleasure. It really is my pleasure.
I guess to start off, it makes sense in terms of being the son of a wrestler yourself. How did that influence your own decision to pursue wrestling?
Well, I was about 8 years old, and I realized my dad was different than everybody else's dad. And my dad used to wrestle, and I won my first medal at 8 years old, and I wrestled amateur. But I tell you the truth, I didn't like anything that smelled in the armpits. You know, I'd rather have my Doc Martens on, my Levi Stair Press, my Ben Sherman shorts. And when I was 12, I had to have an emergency appendicitis anyway. So my dad left me alone for a couple of years. And he didn't come home for Christmas. He was in Canada wrestling. He didn't come home for Christmas. And when he came back, I hadn't seen him for almost 2 years. And he came back, and I had hair down to my hair. When he left, I had a crew cut. When I came back, my hair was down here. And I asked him one time, I said, what do you think, Dad, when I had all this long hair? And he said, well, he's my son, and I love him. And that's all he said. But it was really when I came over to the States at 15 years old, and I didn't want to wrestle, but my dad, I knew it'd make my dad real happy, and I started wrestling in amateur in high school, you know.
Awesome. In terms of your, was there a moment when you decided yourself, I'm going to pursue this as a career?
Yeah. I was, something happened between being 15 and being 16. I got to travel with my dad, who always kept me away from the wrestling because he didn't want me to see the same finishes, you know. And he kept me away from the wrestling. But when I was 15, we spent the whole summer traveling together in Texas, and that's when I started watching the matches and seeing the heel, the baby face, how they got the heat, what made the guy sell. And when I was 16, my dad said to me, we're in Florida, my dad said to me, do you want to wrestle or do you want to go to school? Well, that's a no-brainer. But I didn't realize what I was getting myself into for. I was training 5 or 6 hours a day with Carl Gotch. He took me from doing 50 free squats to doing 500 squats, 250 push-ups, bridging, abdominals in 45 minutes, and going from 50 to 500 is like going from a hill to Mount Everest. And he said to me, he said, listen, he said, you can make any kind of noise. He said, but just don't whimper. And my dad, you know, I used to get so much lactic acid, I used to have to army crawl in the house to the bathroom. And
wow.
one day I woke up and I said, Dad, I can't move. So my dad picked me up, put me in the back of a station wagon, and he said he carried me into Carl's, and Carl, he said the kid can't move. So Carl, he Japanese style. He used 2 poles as supports, and he used his feet to massage. He massaged my whole with olive oil, massaged my whole body. He took me in the house, give me a bowl of red wine, sardines, and onions, and so by the end of the day, I was walking. So that was it. The training was tough, especially being 16. And Jody Simon, he was right there with Carl. Jody Simon is Carl's protege, you know, and I used to say, thank you, Jody, for beating the shit out of me every time we used to wrestle. And because we was submission wrestling, the amateur stuff was out the window. But yeah, but when I was 17, we went back to England, and I was watching TV, and I saw this kid called Dynamite Kid. I got goosebumps. Whoa. And he was wrestling my godfather, who was Alan Dennison. And I made my mind up right then and there. I said, that is what I want to be. And now I'd already had offers to wrestle in Germany, professional, at 17. And I could have wrestled in England because they have all different weights. But my dad wanted me to keep up with it. You know, I was a Northern Counties champion. I came second in the national championships. And my dad had this dream that he wanted me to wrestle in the 1980 Olympics. And I really did it for my dad. I didn't, you know, I did it for my dad because he was so happy that, you know, but yeah, when I was 17, I saw Dynamite Kid on TV, and I said, and Alan used to run a pub in Denham, which is about 5 or 6 miles from Bingley, Yorkshire. And I said, he was talking to me about Dynamite Kid and the stuff he could do. And I said, look, when you see Dynamite Kid, will you tell him Jeff Potts' kid thinks he's the best thing since sliced bread? And let me tell you, he was so fantastic to watch. He was so explosive. And of course, I could never be the Dynamite Kid. But that made my mind up right there and there.
I think I'll jump up a bit because you mentioned Dynamite. I got a lot of fan questions about Dynamite. You know, given his fantastic career and some of the historical information about what he was like to deal with on a personal level. How would you describe your relationship with him on that personal level? Was he difficult with you, or did you gel?
We gelled. I loved him.
Was he someone that
we was very close?
Were you? You said you patterned your style after Dynamite Kid, and that was your inspiration. Did you have any? What was that like then to step in the ring with him? Do you have any memorable in-ring moments working him?
All of them. When you grabbed all the Dynamite, you just listened to everything he said. And the matches, he went out of his way to make me look like a world champion. I just loved working with him. It was like grabbing all the Space Mountain for 30 minutes because he was bing, bang, boom, 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 boom. Yeah. But I could never be Dynamite Kid. Even if I'd be a poor imitation. I knew that. So I did the high, I used to high fly and all that stuff, especially being a smaller guy. I used to do, off the top rope and all that stuff outside the ring. But yeah, yeah, I'm laughing about the stuff that me and Dynamite we used to get up to, and
Ribs?
oh, apart from the ribs, apart from the ribs, the stuff we used to, like for instance, we'd be right. We're not going out tonight. We're going to we have something to eat, go to bed, and get a good night's sleep. And we sat there in the bar, and somebody would walk in, and we looked at each other, and we said, "Plans subject to change." And we was up for 3 days. But we had a thing that he was a captain of. He was a big dog. I was a little dog. He was a big dog. A night patrol. There was me, Davy Boy, Dynamite, Danny Spivey, and Corporal Kirshner. Now, a couple of people dropped out because it was only me and Dynamite. But Danny Spivey is a great friend. He saved my life twice. And yeah, and Corporal Kirshner, he really screwed up. When he went to Calgary, he went there on Dynamite's name. Dynamite got him in there, and then he started missing shows. And then he quit altogether. He was bouncing them in bars, and yeah, he really messed up.
We've got, speaking of legends, we've got the legendary Bob Cook, the cooker, watching, and he's saying, "Hello, Mr. McGhee. Next Legends Lunch in Tampa, January 31st. That's quite an event, isn't it?
Yeah. All right, Bob. I remember working. He was a hell of a worker. A hell of a worker was Bob. I don't know why he didn't get a bigger push than he did, but yeah, Bob was a hell of a worker.
Just
he looks good.
Just to switch off Dynamite for a minute, I wanted to know how you came to break in, at least in the U.S., in the Mid-Atlantic JCP territory, that whole deal, and any memories of that early run.
Sure. Well, they knew I could wrestle, right? So they used to say, "This kid's from high school," and they say, "If you can beat him, you can get to go with the real pro." So that's how I started. Plus, I was plus George Scott started me refereeing. So I was refereeing. I was working out in the office, with guys. Plus, I was working at the AAA ball club that Jimmy's sister had. So I was quite busy. But I got a payoff for 2 nights refereeing. I made $700. For a young kid, I thought $700, and I'm wrestling. So I started not wanting to pursue the Olympic dream that my dad had. And I said, "Dad, I really want to turn pro."
You, in the early 80s, teamed up with Barry Windham, another legend, great worker, to become the tag team champions, one of the youngest duos either. What memories stand out from that run, and specifically working for Mr. Eddie Graham?
We were the youngest in history. No, he was only, I was 20, just 20, and he was 19. And we are the youngest in the history of the NWA to win the Florida, Tag Champ. And it was a fantastic time, Barry was great as a partner. He's great as a man. I think if he hadn't have stopped wrestling, I think he'd have been world champion. And Eddie Graham, Eddie was great because he liked guys that could wrestle, and he knew I could wrestle, it was fantastic. It was great.
A fan got a number of fan questions from social media. I'll hit you with the first one because it seems to fit in this time frame. They asked about your '82 run in Japan, working with Andre the Giant and against Hulk Hogan, and your thoughts on his recent tragic passing.
Well, the first part, when Cal Gotch, when he sent my pictures to Japan, he wrote on the back, 6'1" and 245. Now, I didn't weigh, but I'm only 5'9" tall. That's before my operations. And I weighed at the time about 200 pounds. So I get off the plane, and Dick Murdoch was on a flight over with me. And they're getting off the plane, and they're looking for this 6'1", 245. And I come by looking like I was well dressed, of course, suit and tie. But they were looking, looking up. And my first match was in a sumo palace, the last main event match against Inoki. And Cal told me to work stiff, don't show nothing. But I think he should have really slapped me around a bit and said, listen, yeah. But I enjoyed it. Of course, it's tragic when we lose another brother in wrestling. But I wasn't surprised.
Ibzan is asking, was Hulk cool with you off camera?
Absolutely, yeah. Me and him, we hung out in Japan. We went out with the mafia. They took us out. Yeah, we believe me. And plus, I used to knock on the door, and all the clubs are private over there, private clubs. And once they used to see Hulkster, they used to just I said, I'm his bodyguard. I'm his bodyguard. And we went in all the private clubs together, but then I got a little heat with the Giant. So, and he said, I love you, brother, but I got to work with the Giant every day.
Why did you have heat with him?
Oh, it wasn't really heat. He was right. They'd play jokes on me. Like they'd put me in a Japanese room, just a mat on the floor. And I said, man, it was fantastic last night. And the little thing that you go to the bathroom, and I loved it. And I didn't really put it over, but I tell you what, me and the Giant and Hulkster, Dick Murdoch, we all went out and they gave me some hot lemon water that was actually sake. And the next thing I remember is boom, 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 boom. And I woke up in my bed and I looked down and my boots, the toes are missing. And my knees are missing. My belt's gone. And even the loops, the belt loops are missing. My shirt's torn open. And I can hear knocking on my door and my head. And I look at there's blood all over the place. And so I stagger in the bathroom. I lost 3 days of my life through this. And I still have the scar right there. It's a big lump, a scar. And it's a Giant. He made sure I got my bag. He got all my clothes. He carried me down to the bus. He sat me on the bus. So I knew, evidently, I must have been fighting him on the way back. They tried to put me over the shoulder, but I fell off the shoulder, hit my head on the sidewalk. And they was deciding whether I should take me to hospital or not, and decided not to. And I was working that night. I don't know, but the Giant, he must have said something. He watched the kid's head. And the first thing the guy did was bang my head. Oh. And he shouted across the ring. He said, "I told you to leave the kid's head alone." And whatever, and when, I can't remember who we was wrestling, but the Giant made him pay.
That's a solid guy. You received an 83 NWA world title shot against Ric Flair. Fans have asked about your memories of working those matches, and then just about the personal connection that you had with Flair, and that must have come with unique perks and pressures, so to speak.
Well, me and Rick, I was very close to Rick. Yeah, I mean, I used to drive him around, I used to do anything he wanted, and he'd always, give me ice for my milk, and I wasn't even, I tell you what he did. He paid, Stan Lane.
Midnight Express, Fantastics, yeah.
No,
sorry,
Stan
Fabulous
Lane.
Ones.
Fabulous Ones, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Rick was breaking him in the business, and he paid me $20 a workout. This is when $20 was $20. He paid me $20 to work out with Stanley every day. And I took Stan from maybe doing 50 squats to 500 squats in no time at all. And then we used to wrestle each other on Rick's grass, nothing professional, just straight up wrestling. And yeah, so he broke in very quickly, unfortunately. And so the $20 stopped.
In terms of your in ring with Ric Flair, some of the fans commented, just in the high quality technical nature of those. Do you have any favorite matches in general?
All of them. You know, they say that Rick's a routine man, but not with me. I mean, you know, I just listened, and he loved to go a long time. You know, 45 minutes. You know, was nothing to Rick. He was used to it, and yeah, I loved it. I loved Rick. I still do, and he was great. He was great.
Another fan question: working with King Tonga, Haku, and any memories outside of the ring? We've all heard about how he was an absolute killer, tough man amongst tough men.
Well, I worked with him. We're the same age. I worked with him many times in Florida, and of course, being a babyface, he was a babyface. I was a babyface when I went up to New York. You know, he helped me. We stayed together, you know, in motels, and I never saw. At one time, I saw me and Adrian had a few words, and I look back, just don't, and I see Tonga crouching behind the Coke machine, you know. So I thought, I know what he's thinking. So I started getting really mouthy. But me and Adrian, we sorted it out. So it's all right.
Adrian Street or Adrian Adonis?
No, not Adrian Street. He's a lovely man.
Adonis.
Yeah, Adrian. You know, Adrian did not respect younger guys. You know, he used to kick us in the stomach and say, "You piece of shit." And, you know, just things, you know, just a couple of guys, young guys.
Till your friend, who I've also had the pleasure of interviewing, Mr. Spivey, straightened him out in that backstage situation.
Yes, he did. Yeah.
In terms of, you know, your Florida run, it was perhaps topped off by you winning the Florida heavyweight title, and you had, you know, I'll run down some of the legends that you defended against: Kevin Sullivan, Mark Lewin, Adrian Street, amongst others. What was the highlight of that run from your perspective?
Well, I had the title 3 times. You know, that when it was dead, didn't mean a thing. They'd give it to me, and you know, I would have it for maybe 6 months, build it back up, and made it mean something. And then I used to drop it to the like Lord Joe LaDuke. I had some great matches with Joe. I mean, they were just Coach John Heath. You know, he used to sit like this far away from the ring, and he'd come in and he'd say, "Have you seen the matches? They're like shoots," you know. And so if he can fool John Heath, Coach John Heath, it was good matches. Mm-hmm. And you could hear the crowd. They'd be popping every 10 seconds. You know, well, I always knew that my opponent was going to be bigger than me. So I learned to have my best matches with big men.
Mm-hmm. That's a skill for sure. Yet another fan question asking about you teaming in Florida with a young Magnum TA, Terry Allen.
Yeah. We was we one time me first Dusty asked Dusty. I got to give credit to Dusty. Dusty was the one that said you are going to win me and Barry, right? Then he said, you and Terry are going to be a tag team, but first you're going to wrestle against each other around the territory, and then you become a tag team. And one time, it was me and Terry against Raul Mata. He was middleweight world champion, by the way. And Tommy Wright. And he came to me afterwards and he said, that's what I call turning chicken shit in a chicken salad. And he went on about the match. They said, and me and Terry got over as a tag team. And I thought we was going to go on to be a tag team. Next thing I know is Terry is going to Louisiana for Bill Watts to be a big star.
Mm-hmm. You moved to another great territory, the Pacific Northwest in '83. Wanted to know about your memories of working with Don Owen, and also your another very successful tag team, this time with a young Kurt Hennig.
Well, the reason I went there was Roddy Piper asked me if I was interested. He said they're looking for somebody bigger than Chavo Guerrero, and he said Jimmy Crockett came to me and he said, "Yeah, go run and work on top," because he was so happy with the Starcade, with the way things had gone over, and he was really impressed with everything I'd done. He said, "Just go to work on top, get your interviews down, and come back, and we'll use you on top." But the first thing they did was change my name to Irish Pat McGhee. No, I can pull off a Scottish. I can get away with being from Scotland. I know I don't look it, but I could do. I felt comfortable with Scott McGhee, and the only reason I used Scott McGhee was because in Florida sometimes I had to wrestle my dad, Jeff Potts. So McGhee is my mother's maiden name anyway. So I went up there to change my name, and remember, just 5 years earlier, I went to a high school just outside Portland. I had friends in Portland. I'd rather, and Irish Pat McGhee. I know my brother-in-law is from Dublin. My uncle, his name's O'Brien. Those two are cousins. I know Irishmen, and the Irish are an Irish man is a person that's a friend of yours. Is a friend for life, and I didn't feel like I could pull off the Irish Pat McGhee. I didn't even no. I was so I don't know why I got upset about. I don't know why. You do a lot of stupid things when you're young. I was 23, and I just wasn't happy with the Irish Pat thing. Even Dynamite Kid was calling me, "Oh, Scott, oh." But why me and Kurt, we got over.
Yeah.
I mean, the night, the week I gave my notice, the place they were hanging from the rafters, you know, and you're working with guys like the Saint, David Sierra, you know, and it was just great. The matches were great. I enjoyed, and Dynamite Kid was there, you know, but I thought Billy was gonna come to Florida, right? And I was gonna go up to Portland. Of course, in photographs we all look the same size, but there's no way I could take Billy Jack's place. I could, you know, it's like 6'3", built like a Greek god, you know. But I went there for Roddy Piper.
Was Don Owen a good payout guy for you? I've heard a lot of people love him, but then some recently have said he wasn't the best payout man in the industry.
Dusty Rhodes was the best because you got a guarantee. You knew how much money he was going to make, and it was short trips. I saved a couple of grand, but it rained every day. It drizzled, and I went there. I'd been there with my dad just 5 years before, you know, with my dad, and my dad got so depressed. He couldn't wait to get out of there and get to Florida, you know. They had him wearing it. My dad was already a very serious wrestler, and they made him wear a wig, you know, a wig to the ring, and then he took it off and placed. And so my dad didn't like it, but he would short trips, great guys to work with, especially with Kurt, and yeah. We was tag team champions, you know. So, you know, it's just that I didn't like this Irish back, and I just decided I wanted to leave.
I don't play in Florida.
I jumped from the frying pan into the fire.
Yes, we'll get to that momentarily. Rick Brooks, super fan, educated individual, is asking, did you ever cross paths with Mad Dog Buzz Sawyer? And what your thoughts are on him if you did?
Very, very, just for a couple of weeks. He was in the Florida territory. And yeah, he was fine. I never had to work with him, wrestling, you know, but yeah, he was fine. I know his brother really well. His brother, I wrestled his brother many times.
Yeah, unfortunately passed away just a couple of years ago too.
Yeah.
Another social media question is: you worked with Randy Savage in Memphis, and then of course on syndicated television. The fans asking about, and that match is still available on YouTube. Really, really entertaining match. Talking about the WWF one. What were your experiences working with him in the ring?
Loved it. I used to tell him I used to tell him spots, and he go, yeah. And then I spoke with small packaging, 1, 2, you kick out, boom, yeah. In fact, when I was in, it was somewhere around New York, and they had this cheering section that used to say, Pison, Paisan, 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 because they must have known that I'm half Italian. Something that I didn't find out till I was 40 years old. That my Nana McGhee, she's a full-blown Italian. I never knew. All my mother talked about was McGhee, Archie McGhee. He's from Scotland, Ayrshire, Scotland. And all she pushed was, oh yeah, my dad's is from Scotland. She'd love my granddad. But when I was 40, I said, Mum, I wish you'd have known. I might have been Rocky McGhee. You never know.
Awesome. And in terms of your work with him in the ring, aside from being good matches, you seem to have really good chemistry there. What was the origin of that? Is just the way that it was?
I don't know. It just clicked. Because the night they're going again, Paisan. He asked Pat if he could put me over. And of course Pat would have none of that. And I loved Randy. He was really, in fact, 10 years after I seen him, and he went, oh man, we had great matches. Yeah. Mm-hmm. In fact, Jake the Snake, I'm in his collection. Jake the Snake, the best of Jake the Snake.
Pick Your Poison, the DVD set. Yeah.
I'm in Randy Savage's with Randy. And where's my money, Vince? I don't get a penny. Not a penny.
Yeah, let's not even talk about lack of revenues for streaming. But speaking of Vince, in '85 you transitioned to the WWF. How did that come about?
George Scott called me up and he said, do you want to come to New York? I said, I can't. I said, I'm just going to England for to wrestle, see my family and wrestle. But when I came back, I called George, because things weren't working out in Florida. I called George up, and George said, you start in Nassau. And I was in, I flew into Newark. I didn't know how the hell I was going to get to Nassau Coliseum and I ran into Tonga in the airport. He said, come with me. And it was me, Tonga, Uncle Elmer, and Cousin Luke, all traveling with those guys. It took us like 4 hours to get out of New York.
That must have been something. I guess the obvious question is your interactions with Vince McMahon. How was he with you? And Ibzan is asking, when was the last time you saw Mr. McMahon?
I can't remember when last time I saw him, but he was more interested in the above talent, from the Bulldogs up. What George did with me was no concern to Vince. The first I seen Rick rake it in a nightclub in Tampa. And he says, why did you put, Rick just a couple of years earlier, Rick put me over on TV. 1, 2, 3 with a back suplex, you know. So he asked me, why do you put that guy, Randy Savage, over? And I said, the thing is, I was wrestling first or second match, and I was getting $2,500 a week. The money was just, it was just too good, you know.
Mm-hmm. That's something. Sorry to interrupt. I wanted to ask you something along those lines. You worked house shows extensively. You were on TV. Wanted to ask you, when you signed, was there any direction about how you were going to be used, and were you happy with how you were used?
Well, as long as your name was on the booking sheet every day, and you're making $2,500 a week, what is there to complain about? I could be a star in Florida and make $800 a week, or I can be doing jobs making $2,500 a week. And my back was really bad. My back was so bad. I've been to many specialists, but this guy told me, he said, listen, if you don't stop, you're gonna cripple yourself. But I kept on taking the bumps, and yeah.
I guess the money speaks for itself. Ibsen is asking, what did you do to pass time during the long TV tapings in the 80s?
Oh, yeah, play ribs in each other.
Well, that's a good question.
Yeah.
What's your favorite ribs, either receiving or witnessing or orchestrating?
Oh man. Danny Spivey was a great guy, and he just started in the territory. So he just got a new Halliburton, you know. That means he hit the big time. But if he got to spin his locks, you know, so he'd leave to wrestle, and we just get straight into his bag. And he had a brand new pack of cigarettes. We opened it and sprayed all his cigarettes green. No, that's me, Dynamite, and David Boy. We all did it, and we all shut it back in his case and wait for him to come back. He went, green cigarettes. That was it. No, that's it. That's a guy that can take a rib
and not put it over. Isban is asking, of course, about did you ever see Mr. Fuji pull ribs?
Yes. Yeah. On me.
No way.
Yeah. Me, Don Morocco, Fuji sat having a beer. Both of them started laughing. I said, I thought it must be good pot or something. And they were laughing, and they're both laughing at each other. And I said, what's so funny? And then they were both peeing. Fuji's peeing down this leg, and Don was peeing down this leg. And they were just laughing and laughing. Yeah, that's how. That's the the river that really got Fuji over was when he had people over to his house to eat, and they all said, "What a great meal!" Then it was dog.
That's not an urban legend. That actually happened.
Yeah,
Wow.
so me getting peed on was nothing. Everybody used to. When I was 15, we'd all pee on the side of the road. Me, my dad, Redback Bastine. I'd be stood there peeing, and my dad would be peeing down one leg, and Red would be peeing down the other leg. So getting peed on, it was nothing.
Par for the course. Why did you leave WWF and sign with Stampede in '87?
Oh, I left because I hurt my knee. They had to do the big zipper down the side. I tore my posterior ligament, my anterior, no, my medial collateral, and when I tried to walk, my knee had just got out to the side, you know. So I had to have a cast on my leg for like 6 months, and and I was working security, I was bodyguarding. I was doing anything to make a dollar because I want wrestling, And when they fixed me up, they fixed me up. They used to call it the Joe Namath knee brace, but then they switched names to Lenox Hill. And so I got a knee brace, and I got long tights. And Dynamite Kid called me up because he knew I was struggling, because nobody had used me. I'd been off a while with my back. Then I hurt my knee. I was off for probably a year getting my knee right. And Dynamite Kid said, "Hey, they got a spot up here for you, guaranteed. And you're going to be called Garfield Ports, which in a big stretch from Gary to Garfield. And you're going to be working heel." So I just fell in love with Garfield Ports. He was such a liar.
The heat that you generated with that, I mean, that was quite a departure from your previous presentations. What was your motivation when you went out there? I remember watching you do promos, etc., on Stampede Wrestling on TSN, nationally syndicated program, and you were clearly really hated. Did that come naturally to you, that heel turn?
Yes. I'd worked heel in England. I worked heel in England, and I'd seen my dad work heel, and he, as far as I'm concerned, he was the best heel, and it came natural. I hated being a babyface because you always had to tell the truth and this and that, and but I loved it. I was a natural.
Yeah, always the best heels. I wanted to ask you about working with my goodness, some real Hall of Famers. Brian Pillman, you guys had a heck of a rivalry. He'd cut a promo on you and fire the crowd up. That was great stuff. What about working with Brian?
It was great. Everybody. Uh, I loved working It was made for me. You know, he liked to do all the flying stuff. He used to do the European uppercuts, and he used to do the move. You know, where he head scissors you and throws you through the ropes, English style. So we was made for each other. You know, so it was great. Just we was natural.
And of course, Owen Hart.
Yeah, I have some. I wrestled him many times, and he said to me, he said, I went the backdrop, I hit the lights on the ceiling. He said, I thought I was in there with dynamite, and that made me feel good, you know, because I tried to, you know, the aggressiveness that dynamite spun. That's what I tried to do as a heel, you know, that aggressive, you know. When I did something, I really meant it.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'd be a poor imitation of Dynamite.
So, speaking of Dynamite Kid, a man who also modeled his career after him, Chris Benoit.
Yeah, great, nice kid. I still don't believe it. When I leave this planet, I will find out the truth, what happened. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. No, I can't believe it.
Yeah, certainly a dichotomy between that and how many people described him, their relationship. In Stampede, you were doing well. The character was over. I take it that Stu Hart was pleased with your work there. Do you have memories of Stu? Any wit and wisdom that he imparted to you? Probably a lot, I would imagine.
No, I really didn't have much to. He didn't really have that much. He wasn't coming around the matches, you know. He mostly stayed at home, you know. And you know, I lived at Dynamite's house with Michelle and Bronwyn. He bought me a car to get to the pickup spots. I wrecked the car. He got me another car. So not only was, you know, just to just to get to the pickup spots, because heels and babies traveled two separate vans. And yeah, I lived at Dynamite's house, and it was really great. It was good till it wasn't good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. With respect to Davy Boy, you mentioned Davy Boy a number of times. You were in the ring with him. Just wanted to know about your memories of him, and I'm sure you followed the career of Harry Smith. You know, who's really cut quite a career for himself.
Yeah.
Just memories in general of Davy Boy.
Well, one night, one week, I said to David Boy, I said, have you seen the booking sheet? He said, yeah. He said, you're with us all week. I said, great. So me, Dynamite, David Boy, travel together. And they took me to the wrong town. I was supposed to be in somewhere, and I was in the wrong town. But the chief had forgot to book the mystery man, right? So he had a great idea of putting me as the mystery man with the Bulldogs. It was me, David Boy, and Dynamite me in a killer bee mask as a mystery man. Now, they had the nose cut out. My nose looked like an elbow. So I'm going out there. Now, Dynamite saved me. He said, listen, the kid's going out in a killer bee mask. And everyone's trying, I've got a killer bee mask on with a big nose. And they had a couple of spots that made me look really good. And in the end, David Bowie threw me in the rope, pressed me above his head, and dropped me on the manager, Valiant, Jimmy Valiant. Was it Jimmy Valiant?
I only remember the Abu Wizal manager really for that period of Stampede, but perhaps
No, I'm not talking about Stampede. I'm talking about New York.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
I'm talking about stories with David Bowie
against the Dream Team.
No, yeah, was it against Valentine, Beefcakes?
It would have been Jimmy. Yep.
And Jimmy Valiant. And for the finish, they had me as the mystery man in the killer bee mask. He threw me in the ropes, pressed me above his head, and dropped me on Jimmy 1, 2, 3. Yeah.
Gotcha.
But going back to, if you're switching back to Stampede, yeah, I had a time of my life up there. Yeah.
I was confused there for a sec because, of course, after the Bulldogs left WWF, they were back in Stampede as well. So,
right.
What prompted you to step away? You were still a young man, and was that difficult to do that at that juncture from the business?
No, the day that we were going to get the titles, I had 2 blood clots in my brain. So I was in the ICU unit. Couldn't speak, couldn't move my right side, couldn't feel it. They kept saying, "Oh, you've had a stroke. You've had a stroke." And I thought to myself, well, I'm not deaf, And Johnny Smith was in the emergency room, and I kept grabbing him with my left hand. I pull him to my chest, and then I beat my chest because they were talking about operating on me. Now I thought a stroke was a heart attack, and I thought if they're going to cut me open, I'll never wrestle again. But I couldn't even. Julie, Michelle came to see me, and I was just on a gurney. They were waiting for the ICU to open up, and the tears were just flowing down my face. I was 28. 1 minute I was having the time of my life, and then next thing I know, I'm having a heart attack, which is really a stroke, but I thought it was a heart attack. And I spent the next, I don't know how many weeks it was that I was in the IC unit, and I realized that they couldn't do nothing for me. Did occupational speech therapy, physical therapy, and it wasn't. They were you. I mean, I'd see old people, going on, trying to walk on between the parallel bars, and then they'd lost so much weight that what is it called? No, you wear it pajamas. I don't wear pajamas. The pajamas that fall down, all right, and then they'll be walking with no pants on. Then I seen a girl. She must have been 16 years old, getting blown. They put her in a plastic suit, and then blow up the plastic suit so she could kind of stand up. And I saw all this. I saw all this stuff I wasn't used to seeing. Not used to seeing it all. And I saw that just opened my eyes to, and so yeah, so that really started a big change in me. But I came back to wrestling. I went once about yeah.
You rehabbed yourself.
Yeah. I rehab my. Once I could move my big toe, I thought, because they told my ex-wife I was a vegetable. It's a vegetable, so don't expect too much. And that me and Rick, we used to be brother-in-laws,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, but once I could move my big toe, I thought, hey, I'm going to come back from this thing. I wrestled for Mike Graham, not making any money, but I wrestled for him. I went to Yugoslavia with the Rocky Johnson, Red Bastien, Steve Strong. Luke's a guy that was like 7 feet tall and 100 pounds. He was called Luke Skywalker, and he was has-beens, never was. He was just a mix max. Colonel De Beers, what's his name?
Ed Wasowski.
Yeah, Wiskowski. He was there, and we was there. This is when they were communist, and we'd been there. We'd been there probably 10 days, and we wrestled one time, and the guys, the police came and they said, we can't protect you anymore, so you're on your own. Wow. And the promoter said, the Australian guy said, don't worry, I'll send you the money. Well, me and Luke Skywalker, both our wives were pregnant, so we needed the money. And if you'd have blown on me with a puff of air, you'd have knocked me over. But I bluffed my way. Me and him, we took the guy to the bank and made him put it on his credit card. And he paid us. He didn't pay us the full amount, but he paid us a good amount. I said, if I go to Japan and they cancel the tour, I still get paid. And there's two kind of promoters, bad and worse. And let's face it, the wrestling business is not a nice business. It's not a nice business. It's no place for nice guys, which I was. It's no place for nice guys. It's all dog eat dog, up the ladder, up the ladder, up the ladder. And you bit that ear, you know, and then you get guys doing favors, if you know what I mean, which I never did. For no man.
Looking back, I got a two-part question for you before we wrap up, and I want to thank you for being so forthcoming and generous with your time tonight. But if you had to boil it down to what you were most proud of in your career, what would that be? And what would you like the fans who still remember and appreciate your work? What would you like them to ultimately remember you for?
Well, I have two highlights. When superstar Billy Graham put me over for the Florida title, and when Rick put me over on TV. You know, and if I give anybody any pleasure, whether they didn't like me or they liked me, that's all I can ask. And I'd like to apologize to the Canadian fans that I really didn't mean it when I said, you know, Canadian cowards, you know. I didn't mean it. It was only for fun. To make you guys
That's
mad.
awesome.
Yeah. One time, Dynamite said to me, he said, if you run into Corporal Kirshner at Dickhead, ask him for my house key, right? So me and Michelle are out, I'm having something to eat after the matches, and who walks in? Corporal Kirshner in all his fatigues and all his, and he sits down, and if I tell you the truth, if Michelle hadn't been there, I wouldn't have asked him. I said, and by the way, I said, Dynamite wants his house key back. And I think he said, I know he pulled out his knife and stuck it in the table. And I ran in the kitchen and I got a real knife, a big knife. And we started fighting around that place, you know, but it turned into and nothing happened. Nothing, absolutely nothing. He said, I should punch you in the face right now. But I ran back there. I came out. He had a little 6-inch knife. I came out with a real knife from the kitchens.
The old Crocodile Dundee thing. Where can I know you have a Facebook profile? Where is that the best place for fans to keep up with you and relive some of your great career memories, or do you have any other contact?
No, I've got no contact. Only thing is Facebook. Right on Facebook. Facebook. I do very little. I'm a dinosaur.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. I know based on the response that I got in terms of announcing this interview that your career is still very well regarded, and you still have a lot of old school fans, myself included. I just want to say thank you so much for doing the podcast tonight. It's been a pleasure.
Hey, it's been my pleasure. It's been all my pleasure.
Well, fans, that's it for this edition of the Cheapy Productions podcast with the legendary Scott McGhee. Make sure you check out his matches on YouTube and experience what real quality old school professional wrestling was like. Until next time, I'm Jack Kilby. Thanks so much. Thank you for watching this video. Please give it a like if you enjoyed it. Be sure to follow us on all social media platforms at Cheap Heat Productions. Don't forget to hit the notification button and you won't miss any